Let me ask you a question, and I want you to really think about it. If you were dropped into your own life with no memories, would you recognize the person you've become? Would you admire them? Would you even understand them? That uncomfortable pause you feel right now, that's the beginning of self-awareness. Because the terrifying truth is this. Most people spend more time customizing their coffee orders than confronting who they really are. But today, we break that cycle. Today, we face the mirror, and more importantly, we learn how to look. You cannot know yourself if you're constantly lying to yourself. We all do it. We say things like, "I'm fine," when we're falling apart. "I don't care," when we deeply do. "I'm doing my best," when we know we're coasting. But your soul, whatever that is, keeps the receipts. If you want to know yourself, start with brutal honesty. Ask, what am I pretending not to know? Because the self you ignore becomes the chaos that rules you. You are not your thoughts. You are not your feelings. You are what you do again and again and again. If you want to understand yourself, look at your habits. Where do you spend your time? What do you avoid? Who do you envy? Your patterns reveal your priorities, and your priorities reveal your character. The uncomfortable truth: your calendar is a clearer mirror than your reflection. The parts of yourself you fear to face, your rage, envy, laziness, addiction, those are not enemies to destroy, but truths to integrate. If you never confront the worst in you, then it controls you from the dark. Knowing yourself isn't about feeling good, it's about being whole. And wholeness demands that you walk straight into the heart of your discomfort. No one becomes formidable by only looking at their virtues. You must know what you're capable of in both directions. To truly know yourself, you must ask, what am I aiming at? Without a goal, you're a ghost, drifting, reacting, existing. Find your highest aim. Not a job, not a title, but a vision of who you could be if you stopped running, numbing, and hiding. Once you find that aim, move toward it every day, not because it's easy, but because the path reveals the person. Self-knowledge is not a riddle to solve. It's a battle to fight every day you act in alignment with who you could become. So how do you know yourself? You tell the truth, you track your patterns. You face the darkness, and you aim up no matter how heavy the burden, because you are not yet who you could be. And the terrifying, beautiful truth is, that's entirely your responsibility. You cannot know yourself if you're constantly lying to yourself. And make no mistake, you are lying to yourself. We all are. It's part of being human. We protect ourselves with these comfortable half-truths and convenient narratives that let us avoid discomfort. But every time you do that, every time you say, "I'm fine," when you're actually hollowed out inside, every time you claim it doesn't matter, when it absolutely does, you drift further away from who you really are. There's a voice inside you that knows the truth. It might whisper, or it might scream, but it never leaves. It shows up in those quiet moments when you're alone, after the phone is put down, after the lights are off, when there's no one left to perform for. That's when you feel it, that nagging sense that you're not being fully honest with yourself. And the longer you ignore that voice, the more powerful your inner conflict becomes. You begin to fracture. You lose clarity. You forget what you value. And suddenly, you're living a life built on sand, polished on the outside, crumbling beneath the surface. The truth, especially about yourself, is dangerous. It can destroy your illusions, expose your weaknesses, and force you to confront the fact that some of your suffering is self-inflicted. But here's the paradox: that same truth is also liberating. When you finally say, "I'm not okay," you give yourself permission to heal. When you admit, "I'm not trying my best," you create space to grow. When you confess, "I don't know who I am," you begin the process of finding out. But it takes courage, because telling yourself the truth doesn't just reveal who you are, it demands you change. It means abandoning the comfort of excuses. It means holding yourself accountable for what you've been avoiding. And most terrifying of all, it means you can't blame anyone else. So if you want to know yourself, start here. Sit in silence and ask, what am I pretending not to know? Ask it every day. Ask it when it hurts. Ask it when you're tempted to numb out or deflect. Ask it until the answers begin to crack the mask you've been wearing. Because self-deception is a slow poison, and truth is the antidote. but only if you're willing to swallow it. If you want to know who you really are, stop listening to what you say about yourself and start watching what you do. People have a remarkable ability to craft narratives that make them feel good. I care about my health. I value my relationships. I'm ambitious. But if you look closely, those statements often don't match behavior. You say you care about your health, yet you sleep 4 hours a night and haven't exercised in months. You say you value your relationships, but you avoid hard conversations and check your phone during dinner. You say you're ambitious, but your mornings are spent scrolling through distractions rather than building your vision. What you do consistently, not what you say, not what you intend, that's who you are. You can argue with that, you can resist it, but the facts remain. You are what you repeat. Habits are not random. They are patterns shaped by desire, fear, laziness, and discipline, and every single one of them is leaving a fingerprint on your identity. If you want to know yourself, start tracking your time with painful honesty. Where does it actually go? Not where you wish it went, not where you tell others it goes, but where it truly disappears minute by minute, because your time is your life, and where your time goes, yourself goes with it. Look at what you avoid. That tells you where your fear lies. Look at what you obsess over. That tells you what you think you need to survive. Look at who you envy. That tells you something brutally honest about what you think you're missing. The patterns are always talking. Most people just aren't listening, or worse, they're deliberately deaf. You want to know yourself? Start documenting yourself like an investigator, not a friend. Strip away the ego, the defense mechanisms, the I'm trying my best shield. Ask, what do I actually do when no one's watching? Where do I fall when I'm tired? What do I default to under pressure? The answers won't be flattering, but they'll be true. And truth, no matter how sharp, is always more useful than a comforting illusion. You are not your thoughts. You are not your feelings. You are your rituals, your reactions, your real behaviors, especially the ones you think no one will ever see, because you see them, and that's enough. There are parts of you that you don't want to see: impulses, memories, feelings, instincts. You bury them. You hide them behind politeness, performance, and productivity. You tell yourself, that's not me, as if ignoring the darker elements of your nature makes them disappear. But they don't disappear. They grow in the dark, and eventually they find a way to emerge through passive aggression, self-sabotage, addiction, resentment, or cruelty disguised as righteousness. This is the part of you that psychologists have called the shadow, the hidden self. It includes everything you disown to preserve your image of being a good person. But if you want to truly know yourself, you must confront it not once, but continually, because the shadow isn't some evil foreign thing buried deep within you. It is you. It's just the version of you that you haven't yet accepted. Your shadow contains all your unexpressed rage, envy, lust, ambition, selfishness, and yes, your repressed power, courage, and assertiveness too. Everything you've been told to suppress in order to be acceptable is stuffed into that inner basement, and when you deny it, it doesn't vanish. It manipulates you from behind the scenes. The person who says, "I'm never angry," becomes the one who explodes when things don't go their way. The person who says, "I don't care about success," becomes bitter when others succeed. The more you insist that the shadow isn't part of you, the more control it has over your life. But when you stop running and finally turn toward it, that's when self-knowledge begins. It won't feel good. It might shake you, but it will ground you in reality, because you cannot be whole if you don't acknowledge what you're capable of, for better and for worse. To know yourself, you must admit, yes, I have darkness in me. And then you ask, what would happen if I understood it, integrated it, and used its energy for something good? That's where transformation begins, when you stop pretending to be innocent and start becoming powerful. Power without self-awareness is dangerous, but awareness without power is incomplete. Your shadow holds the raw material of strength. When you face it, not only do you become more honest, you become more dangerous in the best way possible. You become someone who cannot be easily manipulated, intimidated, or broken, because you've already walked through the fire of your own truth, and that kind of person is not only rare, they're unstoppable. If you want to know yourself, you need a direction. A person without an aim is like a ship without a rudder, subject to every wind, every current, drifting endlessly with no sense of where they're going or why. And when you drift, life doesn't feel meaningful. It feels chaotic, random, and exhausting. People who don't have a clear aim often say things like, "I feel stuck," or "I don't know what I want." But the truth is deeper than confusion. It's a lack of commitment to become something. You will never know who you are if you don't choose a target and move toward it with discipline, with sacrifice, and with intention. Self-discovery does not come through passive reflection. It comes through action, committed, deliberate, and difficult action. Your identity isn't something you find like a lost item under the couch. It's something you build step by step through struggle and movement. So what are you aiming at? And don't just say success or happiness. Those are vague. They're placeholders for people who haven't done the hard thinking. Your aim must be specific, and it must be noble, not just for your ego, but for your soul. It should scare you a little. It should demand that you grow. Ask yourself this: who could I become if I took full responsibility for my potential? And not the watered-down version of you that conforms to expectations, avoids failure, and hides behind self-doubt, but the highest version. The one who speaks truth, who leads, who builds, who serves, who carries weight with integrity. That version of you exists, but they are far away, and the path to reach them is steep. Once you aim at that highest version of yourself, your life changes. Every action becomes a reflection of whether you're moving toward that person or away from them. You begin to make better choices, you waste less time, you stop chasing validation and start earning self-respect. And along that path, through the trials, the failures, the discipline, and the discomfort, you meet yourself. Not the version shaped by fear or culture, but the one forged by purpose. Because it is only when you move toward a difficult, meaningful aim that the deepest parts of you wake up. That is where identity lives, that is where self-knowledge is earned, and no one else can walk that path for you. So, how do you begin the lifelong process of knowing yourself? Not by scrolling through inspirational quotes or waiting for the right moment to reflect. You start by stepping out of the illusion that you're already fully known even to yourself. Most people live behind a mask, carefully crafted for the approval of others and the comfort of self-deception. But the person you pretend to be will never know peace because he or she is built on avoidance. The person you could become, however, the one grounded in truth, that person may not feel comfortable at first, but they will be real. And reality, no matter how difficult, is the only place where transformation happens. Knowing yourself requires courage, not comfort. You must be willing to confront the parts of yourself that make you flinch, the laziness you deny, the bitterness you carry, the potential you've abandoned. It means watching how you live your life when no one is watching and realizing that every small choice is either sharpening you or softening you. It means asking yourself the kind of questions that don't flatter the ego. What do I really value? Where am I lying? What am I afraid to face? And then most critically, it means listening to the answers without running away. This is not self-help fluff. This is inner warfare. It's the fight for ownership over your own life. But self-knowledge isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about discovering what's buried. Inside you is something worth uncovering, potential that's been dulled by years of distraction, strength that's been smothered by comfort, and a moral compass that's been compromised by fear. Your highest aim, that future version of you that lives on the other side of struggle and responsibility, is calling you. And the clearer your vision becomes, the more the noise of the world begins to fade. You stop reacting, you start choosing, you stop drifting, you begin becoming. The path won't be easy, but it will be yours, and that alone makes it worth walking. So no, knowing yourself isn't some romantic journey of self-expression. It's a radical act of truth telling. It's taking responsibility for the one thing you can truly control in this life, your character, and it demands that you stop asking, "What do I feel like doing?" and start asking, "Who am I becoming through this?" Because in the end, the goal is not just to recognize yourself in the mirror, it's to become someone you respect when no one else is around. That is how you know yourself, and that is where your real life begins. Shared online, such as on YouTube, a podcast, or another digital platform. Thank you for taking the time to listen, reflect, and engage with this message. If these words stirred something in you, if they challenged, inspired, or even unsettled you, then they've done their job. Self-knowledge isn't a destination, it's a daily commitment, and I hope this message becomes part of that process for you. If you found value here, consider sharing it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're on your own journey of growth, you're not alone. We're all in the process of becoming not perfect, but intentional. Thank you for being here. Thank you for thinking deeply. Thank you for daring to ask more of yourself. Until next time, stay honest, stay awake, and keep walking toward who you were meant to be. Goodbye.